yung totoo. Anyway, so, hi! Hi guys! So today, oh my god, I really forgot how to intro for classes na. But anyway, so today we're going to discuss the first discussion in HCI, which is Human Input-Output Channel. So what do we mean by this? It's like, it's just the same with the computers. Humans have also their what they call input and then output channels. So forgive me if I don't have my camera on. I feel shitty. Hindi naman. Para yun nga, since kagaling yung sakit, I'm not like the freshest person on earth right now. So, yeah. Let's start. So, today we're going to discuss vision. So, in the human perspective, in human eye, visual perspective, and of course, in reading. So, before we begin that, let's just have an introduction first. So, in 1983, Card, Moran, and Newell described the model human processor. So just like the computers, like the humans have also this what they call processors. So it is a simplified view of the human processing involved in interacting with computer systems. So how do people interact with computers? So there are three subsystems of MHP. This is the perceptual system, the motor system, and the cognitive system. So this will be discussed as we go on the chapter or as we go on the subject. So each of them has a processor and a memory, and MHP also includes a number of principles or of operation which dictate the behavior of the system under certain conditions. Ayon. So, today we're going to discuss the input-output channel of the human person. So it may be interaction with the world. So how do we interact with the world? Like kapag may naaamoy tayo mas mabango, gano'n, or masama, ano yung nagiging reaction natin. So, yung input and the output. So, kung sinaktan ka, nung gagawin mo pabalik. So, something like that. And then we have the interaction with the computer. How do people interact with the computer? And of course, our human input is through our senses and the human output is through our effectors. So, what are those? We're going to be discussed later. So, our input via senses, so we have the vision, hearing, touch, taste, and we also have smell. Okay, so today we're going to discuss vision first. And then our output via effectors, so these are our responders. Ano yung mga nagre-react after we feel or we sense, we use our senses, something like that. So we have our limbs, kamay, we have fingers, we have eyes, our head, or even our vocal system. Syempre, pag sinuntok kita, sisigaw ka, di ba? Aray, katangina, ganon. Parang ganon sana. So, yun. Okay, so, of course, we also have our interaction with PC using input-output channels. So, using GUI, information received by sight, beeps, received by ear, and feel the feeling, keyboard and mouse, whatever you with fingers. So, for example, when we use our sight, when we are using the computer, basically the main thing that we're using is our sight. Syempre, tinitignan natin yung tsura ng computer, ganyan, GUI, asaan yung pipindutin natin, and so on and so forth. And then we have the information, binabasa natin information pabalik base sa mga binabasa natin. And then we also use our ears when we hear like beeps, yung mga alert beeps, mga ganyan notification, lalo when we hear a bell, for example, we're scrolling Facebook in our phones, and ganyan. Pag may narinig tayong chat head or chat, yung tunog ng chat, sana all may ka-chat na joke, na of course, diretso tayo na i-open natin yung yung messenger, right? Okay, and then we have the feel of the keyboard and mouse. Ewan ko if ako lang, kasi I was like people are asking, bakit may vibrate yung keyboard ko? Yung sa phone, bakit may vibrate yung keyboard mong weird mo? Ganun sila sa akin. So, mas feel ko kasing mag-type pag may nararamdaman ako. Yun na lang yung nararamdaman ko. Joke lang. Ayun, parang mas feel ko kasi mag-type every time na parang I feel something thumb. Ganon. So, at the same time, syempre, other people would prefer using mechanical keyboards rather than membrane keyboard kasi nga yung takatak yung excuse me, yung lagatak ng ng keyboard na pakiramdam, ang sarap. Ayun. So, bali iba rin yung response natin. So, every time we do that. Okay, so talking about, so we have Vision. So, Vision, hindi to si Vision sa Avengers. Okay, so we have highly complex activity, physical and perceptual limitations. So, there are two stages of visual perception, physical and interpretation, physical reception of the stimulus and interpretation processing of stimulus. So, processing allows construction of images from incomplete information. So, of course, what is the number one organ that we're going to use when it comes to vision? Of course, we have the eye, the human eye. So that's like one of the most important parts of the human body. Of course, you can appreciate my beauty if without the eyes. Charot. Okay, so we have the parts of the eye. So as you can see, let's dig into the essentials. So we have the cornea. That's like the cover. Yeah. Then we have the iris, then the pupil, then you have the lens at the back, and then you have the retina, which process everything, and then you have the ligaments, the fovea, then the tendons, ganyan, vitreous humor, aqueous humor, and then of course the blind spot. Okay, so the cornea and the lens, this focuses the light into a sharp image on retina. So every time dadaan sila sa atin, sa eyes natin, it is actually upside down. So, oh my god, this is the basic anatomy. You should learn this during high school. But anyway, so kapag dadaan yung ilaw, kumbaga sa tagusan ng mata, na-capture ba? Dito manda, tapos ganyan, lulusot siya dyan. Upside down kasi yung nare-receive kasi talaga ng retina. And then, saka ipaprocess ng brain natin. Kung kung aware din kayo mas kaya ko kasi explain sa DSLR. Pero, para same concept yon ganun. And then, of course, we have the rods and the cones. The rods and the cones, these are the receptors, photoreceptors that processes everything we see. Ayan. So, the rods, these are situation towards the edges of the retina. So, yan sa dulo-dulo dyan. This dominates peripheral vision sa side-side. Ganyan. This is sensitive to light. This allows us to see under low levels of illumination, low light, kumbaga. They are unable to resolve fine detail and are subjective to light saturations. So, the cause of temporary blindness when moving from dark areas to very bright ones. Diba like, pag nasa madilim ka, ganyan, tapos biglang maliwanag, shit! Parang gano'n. Parang nabubulag ka, gano'n. So, there are 120 million rods per eye, per person. So, isang mata, 120 times 2, 240 per tao. Yan. So, yung cones, this actually helps us with colors, so color vision. So, they are less sensitive to light. They can tolerate more light than rods. So, basic function is color vision. This is situated in fovea, the small area on retina where image is fixated. And then there are 3 types. Each are sensitive to different wavelength. So, for the blind spot, these are the area where an optic nerves enters. So, no rods or cones in that area, and visual system compensates for the lack of rods and cones. So, yung blind spot, ayan, syempre, wala ka makita. Okay, so, nerve cells, aka ganglion cells. So, hindi kayo aware. Hindi lang mat ang nasa IT, may biology din. Charot. So, have a specialized nerve cells, so type X cells, concentrated in fovea, detection of patterns, while the wild cells, they are widely distributed in retina, early detection of movement, and they cannot detect change in patterns. So, together, of course, they work like tremendously in order for us to see. Okay, so when we talk about visual perceptions, we have the size, depth, brightness, and color. Ito yung mga iba't ibang mga paraan ba, kumbaga. Paano ba sasabihin natin? Kasi everything we see is not actually what we see, gets mo? Kasi parang I can deceive you that I look smaller than what I really am. But ayun, it's just because of some eye tricks, and yun, depende sa perception nyo as a person. So, like, yes, bakit natin ito inaaral? Kasi, like, nadadaya talaga yung mga itsura, like, pwede kang magsuot ng stripes na patayo para magmukha ka mas matangkad or something like that. Ayun, so, ayun. Notions of size and details. So, for example, when you're standing on a hill, ganyan, syempre, mas mukha kang doon mo makikita na maliit, parang maliit lang yung isang space, or sobrang doon mo makikita na parang maliit lang yung mga malalayong bagay, something like that. So rocks, ships, and small tree on summit, farmhouse on hillside, person walking on track, small market, towns in valley. So this is what I'm talking about. So size specified by visual angles, so affected by both size of object and distance from the eye. So as you can see here, these two can actually be of the same size, pero alam naman natin talaga na mas malaki itong nasa dulo. Pero since andito ka na mata, pwede mo silang makita na magka-size. Gets nyo? Yung like, yeah. Kasi syempre mas malayo to, so mas mukha siyang maliit, ganyan. Tapos, yeah. So, yun. And then, we have the visual angle indicates how much of the field of view is taken by the object, measured in degree or minutes or arc. These are like yung mga mini-measure ng mga survey, camera, ganyan. Visual acuity is the ability of a person to perceive fine detail. So, objects with visual angles smaller than 0.5 seconds of an arc are not visible. Spaces between line visible at 30 seconds and 1 minute of arc is visible. So, law of size, sige, speaking of visual acuity, alam nyo ba yung di ba parang meron yung prank na ginagawa ng mga tadong tao talaga na everyday minumove nila yung sofa nila sa bahay nila ng sobrang onti lang, as in yung hindi mapapansin na biglaan, na talagang dahan-dahan, unti-unti, parang inuusog-usog lang nila yung sofa, parang ganyan. Tapos eventually yung nanay nila matitison na doon sa sofa, like nag-move na pala yung sofa, na hindi napapansin kasi nga hindi siya ganun ka-visible. Ayan, segue lang. Ayan, so law of size constancy, perception of the object size remains constant even if its visual angle changes. So the perception depends on factor other than the visual angle. So what are the factors? Of course, we have perception of depth, cues to determine relative position of objects. So maybe objects overlapping and stuff. Size and height of object provides cue for distance, and familiarity. Certain size helps you to judge the distance accordingly. So for example, with this one, so nakikita natin na mas malaki si A sa si K, and then paliit ng paliit, ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. So if you're going to look at this one right here, the square at the middle, you can actually have the scope na makikita mo lahat ng letters from A to K by looking here. Ganyan. Actually, may view ka na ng lahat. Yeah, of course, that is how peripheral vision works as well. And at the same time, being like the human mind is so awesome and that kind, even though you just look at it like padaan, alam mo na agad na G yung kulang dito, unless hindi mo talaga alam. Oh my God. Ayun. Tapos, like, kahit hindi mo pa siya tignan talaga, alam mo na siyang A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Parang ganun. Parang feel niya yung void para sa utak mo. Parang matik na, okay. Parang may autocorrect, kumbaga. Anyway. So, perceiving brightness naman tayo. So we have brightness as subjective reaction to levels of light affected by luminance of objects. So for luminance, it depends on the amount of light falling onto objects, refractive properties of object, and measured by photometer. So contrast the function of the luminance of an object and the luminance of its background. So basically, we can see without light. So kailangan natin kung gaano kaliwanag, kailangan pa rin natin ng liwanag kahit na anong mangyari. Yan. Kahit na naka-0, nakasagad yung bar ng cellphone nyo kasi ayaw nyo may ibang nakakabasa, meron pa rin namang liwanag na nagpapakita para mabasa nyo yung context sa phones nyo. Okay, so measured by just noticeably difference caused by luminance. So you have rods predominate in dim lighting, Then the cones, wala siyang ambag. Charot. Wala siyang ambag sa dim lighting. So, visual acuity increases in luminance. The case for using high luminance displays. Flicker also increases with luminance. Larger the display, the more it will appear to flicker. Alam niyo yung flicker, guys? Yun yung ano yan, yung wala pala akong camera. Nagbi-blink-blink siya na parang, basta yun. Nagbi-blink-blink siya na parang nawawala, ganon. Okay, so there are next is we have colors. Then we have three components of color. So we have the hue, then we have the intensity, and then we have the saturation. So the hue will determine the spectral wavelength. So if it is short, it is blue, then green, and then red. So guys, I would like to pop your bubbles. Charot. When it comes to light, the primary colors are red, green, and blue, RGB. But for tint, which is yung paint, yun yung red, yellow, blue. So, pero sa ilaw, red, green, and blue. Ayan. So, there are 150 hues, 150 hues determined by eye. So, we also have the intensity, the brightness of color. Then, with the saturation, the amount of whiteness in the color. The higher the saturation, mas sabog siya tignan. Ayan. So, 7 million colors can also be perceived by the human eye. So, color perception best in fovea, worse at periphery. So, syempre pag peripheral view mo na, medyo, hindi mo na masyadong ma-determine yung color. Pero, syempre, pagkaharap mo, unless colorblind ka, ayan. So, 3 to 4% cones in fovea are sensitive to blue light. Then, for color blindness, we cannot differentiate between green and red. So, 8% of the colorblind people are male and then 1% are female. Females po ba yung slide? Okay. Okay, so human visual perception, the visual system compensate for movement and change in luminance. Context is used to resolve ambiguity. So, capabilities and limitations of visual processing. So, visual processing allows transformation and interpretation of a complete image. So, visual processing compensates image movement in retina, but we see it the image moves on retina, but we see it stable, ganyan. So, color and brightness perceived constant. So, we have hue, intensity, and saturation. Okay, so, here are some context illusions na parang sabi ko sa inyo kanina, like the brain is so powerful, ganyan, kemero. We can actually have context illusions na parang alam na agad natin yung tinutukoy kahit na hindi pa tayo sure. Something like that. Ayan, so we have this image here. Actually, we can have it like a 13 or a B without any context. But when integrated with other images, alam na natin kung ano agad yun. So, for example, we have this. Automatic, it is like ABC, diba? But it's just the same image, right? And then we have here, then we have 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, diba? Then of course this one, what's this? I can read it like the cats, but this is H and then this is A. But when it comes to the context, alam mo the chut, diba? Alam naman the chut, diba? So yeah, it's the cat. Then, of course, we have overcompensation illusions. Optical illusions sometimes occur due to overcompensation. So, this is what I'm talking about. Like, our perception of size is not reliable. Because of this illusion, as you can see here, parang mas malaki dito kaysa dito, pero actually pantay lang sila. And at the same time, parang mas mahaba to kaysa ito, pero actually pantay lang sila. Okay, so proofreading illusion. There's something wrong in this one. I'll let you think about it for 10 seconds. Keme. Keme-kemero. Okay, so anong mali? Secret. Charot. So, bali yung mali dyan is we have the double the. Ayan. So, being like, kasi parang kapag nadadoble yung the, yung utak natin, in-emit na niya. Ayan. Okay, so we have the lines and optical center illusion. So we do not perceive geometric objects exactly as they're drawn. Legit. Ayan. So, kapag yung lines horizontal lines are like magnified, vertical are being reduced. So, the solution is to display square increased height. So, perceive actual center of page as a little lower. So, the solution is place objects a little bit higher. So, ayan. Kung gusto mo para magmukha ka medyo mataba, magsuot ka ng horizontal stripes. Tapos, pag gusto mong pumayat at magmukhang matangkad, you wear vertical stripes. Yan yung mga usong kemero. Ayan. Okay, so if you have questions, feel free to chat sa Discord and I'm just there naman. Ayan, keme.